and you thought nothing good was going to happen for Pitt. You thought 2025 was just going to pick up from the end of 2024 and be all negative things. The football team losing 6 games in a row, and the volleyball team losing in the Final Four, and then having a top player transfer, and all the the football players that would leave. You thought it was all going to be negative in 2025. And I bet when yesterday started off, as we approached Pitt's basketball game against Cal at the Petersen Events Center yesterday, the first Pitt sports event of 2025, and you saw the news that Ishmael Leggett was going to be out, you probably thought, well, here we go. It's just carrying over. The bad things will continue happening. And I certainly suspect when Pitt was down by 16 with about 4 minutes left to play in the first half, you were positive that whatever bad karma existed, whatever bad juju was out there around Pitt athletics, it was going to carry over into the new year. Well, guess what, folks? Happy New Year. It is a new year, and fortunes have changed. At least for this Pitt basketball program, and at least yesterday, 2025 got off to a great start as the Panthers came back from a 16-point deficit and ended up beating Cal by a dozen to start this main stretch of the ACC schedule with a win. Pitt improved to 11-2 overall and 2-0 in the conference by beating Cal yesterday at the Petersen Events Center. And I think it was a huge game on a lot of levels. I mean, I think there's no shortage of big storylines coming out of that game yesterday. Beating Cal doesn't necessarily make you a hero. Yeah, it's not going to win you the conference. I mean, obviously any win in the conference is going to help you win the conference. It's not the biggest win that you could possibly get. But a lot of the circumstances within the game, from the deficit they fell behind to playing without Ishmael Leggett, and then some of the guys who were able to step up and make big plays to help Pitt win that game, absolutely huge storylines and huge for this team going forward in the short term and I think the long term. As you start counting down now, 18 regular season games left to go. And there were things that we saw yesterday that I think bode very, very well for what this team is, what they can become, and maybe what the future might hold as you move through the season. So let's talk about Pitt's win over Cal yesterday. Who stood out, who stepped up, and what our biggest takeaways were from that big win at the Petersen Events Center on New Year's Day. It's the first Morning Pitt of 2025. Welcome to the new year, folks, and welcome to the Morning Pitt on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. All right, it's the Morning Pitt. It's Thursday, I think. I've lost track of the days. I have no idea. I know it's January 2nd, so whatever day of the week January 2nd is supposed to be, I think it's a Thursday. Here we are on the Morning Pitt on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Of course, we always like to, I guess since it's a new year, I'll tell you my name is Chris Peak, and I'm from the website Panther-Lair.com. Maybe we have people who their New Year's resolution was to find a Pitt sports webcast or broadcast or podcast to watch or listen to in 2025. So if that's your New Year's resolution, shout out to you. We appreciate you tuning in and checking out. But I'm Chris Peak from Panther-Lair.com, the most comprehensive source of Pitt sports news on the internet. Football, basketball, recruiting, we cover it all. Panther-Lair.com and message boards to interact with other Pitt fans. All day, every day, Pitt fans are hanging out at Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. And that's the best place to get all of your Pitt sports news and Pitt sports interaction and community. I think it's the best online community of Pitt fans you're going to find. And they're all hanging out at Panther-Lair.com, talking about Pitt sports all day, every day. And, of course, what we do right here on YouTube is lots of Pitt video content. We have our daily morning Pitt shows like this one right here. We have a weekly live show that we do every Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. Didn't do one yesterday. Didn't do one the previous Wednesday because those were holidays. And there's a 9 o'clock game coming up. I forget if it's next week or the week after. But, we'll adjust as need be, week to week. But for the most part, every Wednesday night at 8:30, we have a live show right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. So do me a favor, like this video and subscribe to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. And that way you won't miss any of our Pitt video content or our live shows or anything that we do. Right here, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. So Pitt beat Cal yesterday. It was the final 86-74 was the and that was after Cal scored a couple in the final minute or so. They had a 2-point basket, and then thanks to Cam Corrin taking his 5th foul with how much time was left when he took that final foul? It was right at the end. 17.7 seconds left to play in the game, and he sent Cal to the line for 3 free throws. They made all 3, so it ends up being a 12-point win. Cal covers, but Pitt wins. Panthers, as I said, they improved to 11-2 overall, 2-0 in the ACC. And the most relevant storyline from this game yesterday was the one that emerged before the game even started, which is that Pitt would be playing without Ishmael Leggett. Now, we don't think this is going to be, I believe on TV they said it was an ankle injury. We don't believe this is something that's going to keep him out long term. What that means remains to be seen. Does that mean he is back for Stanford on Saturday? Does that mean he is back for Duke next week? I would say I don't know. I say, the impression we've gotten, and I think even on TV they even sort of mention it, is that if it was March, there's a good chance Leggett would have played yesterday. So I would think, depending on how Pitt perceives this game against Stanford on Saturday, if Leggett's still a little bit less than 100% or not as close to 100% as you would like him to be, then he would sit out, and in order to be more ready for the game at Duke on Tuesday night. But again, we'll see what happens, cross that bridge when we get to it here over the next few days and the next week. But going into this game and seeing that Ishmael Leggett was out, that was pretty big news. Cal, not very good. Maybe the worst team in the ACC or one of the worst teams in the ACC. But you're still playing another power conference opponent. You're playing an in-conference opponent, and you're doing so without your best player. I mean, the guy who has been Pitt's best player so far in Ishmael Leggett, you're playing without him. Now, he's by far, he's far from being the only good player. Obviously, Jalen Lowe is very good. Zach Austin has been very good this season, but Ishmael Leggett is the number one guy. When they are at full strength, he is the number one guy. And you start chipping away, taking players out of the mix due to injury, like Damian Dunn went out, Ishmael Leggett became even more important. You take Ishmael Leggett out, and now you're really down a couple of key players. And again, this doesn't mean they can't win with just Jalen Lowe, but it's a lot more difficult to win with just Jalen Lowe. And Jalen Lowe, in the first half yesterday, wasn't necessarily at his best. He made a lot of shots. He made 5 of 5 from the free throw line, but he was 2 of 9 from the floor. He did have 4 assists, but he also had 3 turnovers, 9 points in the first half. Not a bad first half total, but when you are averaging 1 point per field goal attempt, because he was 2 of 9 from the floor, and you're getting 5 out of your 9 points from the free throw line, maybe not the most efficient game, but I think Jalen Lowe was taking it upon himself to get Pitt into this game and back into this game and give them a chance to win. He just wasn't making those shots. Now, as the second half, in the second half, Lowe was much better. 7 of 14 from the floor. He scored 18 points in the second half. He only made 3 free throws. He had 4 more assists. He got a rebound. Only had 1 turnover. I mean, he was outstanding, and finished with a game-high 27 points. Another really, really good game from Lowe. A great game. Even though maybe not the most efficient. 9 of 23 in the game. But what Jalen Lowe was doing was trying to fill that Ishmael Leggett role. And that's not an easy thing to do. It's especially not easy to do when you don't have Ishmael Leggett out there. I think Lowe can do some of the Ishmael Leggett things, but it's harder to do without Ishmael Leggett on the court, because Ishmael Leggett is going to draw attention. Ishmael Leggett is going to get a lot of defensive focus from the opponent. When you've got Lowe and Leggett going at the same time, it's really hard to shut both of them down. You can commit to stopping one, but that's going to leave more opportunities for the other. When you take one off the court and you've only got one out there, it gets really challenging. And Ishmael Leggett has filled a very particular role for this team this year. And he did some of this last year as well, but he's really taken it on this year. And I think it was missed in the first half yesterday when Cal was building his lead. And it's Leggett's ability to just put his head down and just will himself to the basket. And it's a physical style of play. It's imposing his will style of play. He takes a beating doing it, but he also sort of hands out a lot of that contact, initiates a lot of that contact, and drives in, scores a bucket or gets a foul, or sometimes both. And he's able to do it at times when his team really needs a basket. And there were points yesterday where Pitt needed a basket. Cal went on a few runs. It was 25-21 after Brandon Cummings hit an and one. Cal went on a run and eventually drove the lead to 16 at 23-39, which is what, a 14-2 run? At some point in that 14-2 run, Ishmael Leggett probably would have gotten a basket or gotten to the free throw line. Jalen Lowe tried, but he wasn't getting the shots to fall, and he wasn't getting the foul calls. And so he really didn't score in that stretch there, which not very many players for Pitt did. Obviously, there was only one basket made over the course of just about about 4.5 minutes of play. And Ishmael Leggett typically has been that guy who can just say, okay, my team needs a basket right now to put a stop to this other team's run. I am going to do it. And more often than not, he's successful in doing it. Well, they didn't have that yesterday. Jalen Lowe, again, he tried, but he wasn't getting the shots to fall. Now, in the second half, he was able to get those shots to fall. And I think there's sort of a side story here about Jalen Lowe not being discouraged by a rough half. Again, like I said, he had 3 turnovers in the first half. And he just, when he was driving, he's in the floaters and the pull-up jump shots, and it just wasn't falling for him. But he kept going. He kept battling for it, and eventually they did start falling in the second half. But I think we saw what Pitt looks like when they don't have Ishmael Leggett. It's a team that can struggle to get baskets at times. Now, I say this despite the fact that there were a number of players in this game who had some pretty outstanding performances. Jalen Lowe was one with 27 points. Cam Corrin goes for a double-double, 19 points and 11 rebounds. And as important as Lowe was, Corrin was just as important. And what Cam Corrin did, which I thought was really impressive, was, that's the best way to put it. He showed some of the versatility of his game. He was hitting jump shots. He hit some layups. He made some dunks. I don't think there were really all the alley-oops that they had against Sam Houston State, but he was getting to the basket and scoring in different ways. He was passing well. Did he have any assists? I think he had, how many? I'm bringing up the box score. No, he didn't have any assists yesterday, but he's done well with that this year. He's a pretty solid passer for a center. But Cam Corrin showed that he could score in a variety of ways. And it was actually Cam Corrin who finally put a stop to the bleeding. After Cal pushed the lead to 16 points, Corrin converted an and one, followed up by Brandon Cummings hitting a free throw, and Cummings hitting a 3, and then Guillermo Diaz-Graham had a dunk, and so on and so forth, until the lead was down to 4 points at halftime. Cam Corrin was a big part of that, and he was an even bigger part in the second half. Cam Corrin in the second half had 10 points and 6 rebounds. He was 3 of 3 from the floor. He was 4 of 6 from the free throw line. He had 3 offensive rebounds, which I think is a huge number. I think Pitt only had 1 or 2 offensive rebounds in the first half. And Cam Corrin, who I think has been the target of derision from fans for a variety of reasons. He hasn't scored as much as they hoped he would. He hasn't rebounded as much as they hoped he would. He hasn't been the physical presence under the basket that a lot of fans hoped he would be when he came in as a transfer from Florida State. But I think he showed a bit yesterday of the usefulness he can have. In matchups against good big men, against good centers, I don't know if he's always going to have an advantage. I don't think Cal was particularly good down low yesterday. He's going to face tougher matchups. He's not going to be a double-double machine. But I think the skill set is there. You can see what he can do, and you can see ways that he can produce for this team. And I think a game like yesterday, that wasn't Sam Houston State. It might not be the best team in the ACC. It might be one of the worst teams in the ACC. But it was still an ACC team. It was a power conference opponent. And Cam Corrin had a really good game scoring in a variety of ways. I thought that was really impressive. Not just as impressive as Jalen Lowe, but maybe a little bit more important, because Lowe largely yesterday did the things we know Jalen Lowe can do. I don't know if Jalen Lowe showed us anything yesterday that we didn't know was like, oh, Lowe can do that. Cam Corrin, what we saw yesterday was, again, the versatility of his scoring. If he keeps playing like that, interior, passes into the interior, dumping the ball down low, will continue to be an appealing option for this offense. It's not going to be the case every night, but I think in a lot of games there's value in going down low and letting Corin either score or work the ball back out and try and set something up for his teammates. I thought that was big. And then, obviously Brandon Cummings steps into the starting lineup to replace Ishmael Leggett. Finished the game with a pretty strong 15 points, 5 of 9 from the floor, 3 of 5 from 3. He had 4 rebounds and 3 assists. He only had 1 turnover, played pretty well. Overall, stepping into the starting lineup, played 38 minutes in that game. Actually tied with Zach Austin for the most minutes played. Jalen Lowe played 37. Ran the point a decent amount, Brandon Cummings did. And just overall, I with Cummings and any of the other newcomers, any of the other freshmen or redshirt freshmen in the case of Papa Amadou Kanti, guys who this is their first year of college action. What you're looking for most out of them is game by game settling in and being more comfortable, not looking out of place, looking like they know what's happening, they know what's going on, they know what to expect, and they know how to react. They know how to handle themselves. And Brandon Cummings, I think, game after game is looking more and more like he knows how to handle himself. And it's not just about the 30-point game he had a couple games ago. It's how he is on the court when he's shooting and scoring, but when he's moving without the ball, when he's defending, when he's passing, all the different things that he can do as he gets more comfortable with it. He can handle himself out there. And I think that's what I saw yesterday. So, played a lot more minutes than he would have expected to. Played a lot more minutes than he will get when the team is at full strength. But looked comfortable in those minutes. Did not look like a liability. Still waiting for the Amsal Delilich breakout game. He got more minutes. What did he finish with minute-wise? He played 18 minutes. Decent amount. Took 1 shot. Did not shoot well from the free throw line. Had 5 attempts. Missed 3 of them. I don't really know why that is. He did have 6 rebounds, though. He had an assist, a turnover, a steal, but did not score. I don't know what's not missing, or I don't know what's missing from Delilich's game right now. I don't know if he's not hunting for his shot. I don't know if he's not getting open looks for shots. He didn't actually seem to have that many open looks yesterday. I don't know if other teams are becoming more aware of him and paying more attention to cut him off from having those open looks from outside that he had in previous games. The problem was before, he was always getting open and nobody was passing to him. I feel like the problem yesterday is he wasn't really open. And so there weren't really good passing opportunities for him. He's still a little bit too... or tries to be too clever with the ball, I think, sometimes. But he's also pretty good at making some passes. And he's still a good player in that way. He is going to blow up. Like we said, there's 18 games left in the regular season plus the postseason. He's going to blow up. He's going to find his groove, and he's going to score. I think that's going to come, if not on a consistent basis, then on an occasional one. And that would be a huge boost to this team, to get Delilich scoring double figures on an occasional basis behind Lowe, Leggett, Cam Corin, and when he returns, Damian Dunn. I think you probably assume 3 out of those 4 are going to be in double digits pretty much every night. And then Guillermo Diaz-Graham, more so Brandon Cummings, is going to be out there, 1 out of every 3 or so, getting into double digits and scoring. Guillermo should settle in at some point, you would think. Delilich fits into that mix. So if you can get occasional effective scoring from Delilich over the next 18 games, I think he can fit in and blend with those other guys pretty well. It's just not happening yet. But the biggest thing with this game is that this team was down 16 with 24 minutes left to go. They were down 16 points. That's a big first half deficit. And you can raise your hand if you think that you can do it silently so no one else knows, but you can raise your hand if you felt like the game was over. I know in our Panther-Lair group text, with me and the other staff writers at Panther-Lair, there were a few people who felt like it was over. There were a few people who felt like it wasn't. I think by the time you got to halftime and that 16-point lead had been whittled down to 4, it no longer felt like the game was over. As a matter of fact, it kind of felt like the game was over in Pitt's favor. Like, by the time they got to halftime and they were only down 4, I was pretty sure they weren't losing. I was pretty sure they had control, they had the momentum, and they were going to win. And that's what ended up happening. So, I think that perception was right. And it was just a great second half for Pitt. Stats wise, they shot 56% from the floor. They made 5 of 9 from 3. They had 16 rebounds, which is an important number. It's an important number, even though they had 17 in the first half. Their rebounding, really, I think improved, and I think their defensive rebounding improved quite a bit in the second half. I think they gave up a lot of defensive rebound or gave up a lot of offensive rebounds to Cal in the first half and second chance points as a result. That was a big part of why they fell into the hole they fell into. But everything just worked a little bit better. And so this team showed they can come back in those situations. And again, they did it without Damian Dunn, who they haven't had for a while, and Ishmael Leggett. And those are two guys who are two starters. I think when Dunn comes back, he might come off the bench early on, but I would expect him to get back into the starting lineup. And if not, he's the sixth man, and he's effectively, he'll play starter minutes anyway. So, Leggett and Dunn are two starters. You're playing without those guys. You've moved a true freshman into the starting lineup as a result, and you're able to come back from down 16 and win by 12. I don't care who you're playing. If you're playing a conference opponent, if you're playing an ACC team, a power conference team, that's pretty good. It's really good, as a matter of fact. Now, got a chance on Saturday to beat Stanford and go into the Duke game 3-0 in the ACC, 12-2 overall. It's a pretty good spot to be in. Pretty good spot. All right. Tomorrow we'll have our mailbag. If anybody posts questions, keeping an eye on that. See if anybody's got any questions for us here in the mailbag edition of the Morning Pitt. But I always look forward to that. So if you want to submit a question, go to the message boards at Panther-Lair.com. Excuse me. We have our mailbag thread there on the Between Fifth and Forbes message board. You can go in and post a question. We'll answer as many as we can in tomorrow's Morning Pitt. Happy New Year, everybody. Glad to be back at it for 2025. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. And we will catch up with you tomorrow for the Morning Pitt right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.